for inviting me here. You know, I met him a couple of years ago, maybe the year before last. He came on one of our firewalking events in Dubai. And I remember saying to myself at the time, now, here's a person who's going to go out and do something special. And I had no idea that we'd stay in contact, but we have stayed in contact. And a couple of weeks ago, I got a telephone call from him, or an email, I can't even remember, it was, can we speak on Skype? And he said, Carol, can we do a firewalking event here in Kuwait? And I said, sure. When were you thinking of doing it? And he said, well, next month in July. I said, look, you live here, I live here. We both know how hot it is in July. And do you know how hot those coals are and the fire that we have to build? It's about 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those of you who don't work in Fahrenheit, that's about 926 degrees centigrade. And for those of you who don't work in Fahrenheit or centigrade, let me just tell you, it's very, very, very hot. And I thought, I don't want to be standing by a fire in 48 degrees centigrade by a fire that's 1,600 degrees Fahrenheit. So I said, it's a fantastic idea. And would you be up if I came up with something different? And thankfully for you, we're not standing outside because he agreed, and I'd like to thank him for inviting me here tonight and thanking him for going for his dreams and having the courage to share his experiences with you. He really deserves our hand for all his courage. Now, as you've probably already recognised, I'm from England. I've got an English accent. But what you may not know is I've been in this part of the world for about 20 years in the United Arab Emirates. So I guess I'm nearly Emirati, not quite. I'll stick with the British passport. But one of the questions I'm often asked is, you know, what brought me to this part of the world? And it's a good question because I always say there's 3 zones in life. There's what I call the absolutely brilliant zone, you know, where things couldn't get any better. And then there's the kind of like, okay zone, not so bad zone, where when people ask you, how are things going? You go, it's fine, it's okay, it's nice. The kind of not so bad zone. And then of course there's the absolutely awful zone, where life and things just couldn't get any worse. Now, I don't know if that sounds familiar, the absolutely awful zone to any of you. You know those times when you hit a block, a barrier, or it just seems there's too many problems, or maybe you just feel you're going around in circles, your job isn't going anywhere, you can't seem to break out of those ruts. Maybe sort of things aren't going well financially. I mean, many of us have been through a financial crash. Maybe you've lost your job. Or maybe your relationship is not going so well. Well, over 20 years ago, I was in the absolutely awful zone. And in my case, it was because the relationship had gone in the wrong direction. Now, I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but when you're in the absolutely awful zone, there's no place deeper down to go. You're in it. So the only way is up. And if you've ever noticed when you're down at the bottom, it's like you're really motivated. You're going to do whatever it takes to get you out of the absolutely awful zone. And that's exactly what I did. I was really motivated to do whatever it took to get me out of this rut. And so I spoke to people I knew who lived overseas. I decided to leave the UK. I went for auditions, I went for job interviews. I did everything I could, as you probably have when you want to get yourself out of the absolutely awful zone. So very soon what happens to most people is they find themselves in the not so bad zone. Because if you're going to take all that action, if you're going to be really motivated, you're going to dig yourself out of that ditch pretty soon. Now here's where you probably find that your motivation evaporates and the action dwindles to next to nothing. So what does that mean? It means that most people spend most of their life in the not-so-bad zone. Their life isn't brilliant, but it's not so bad. It's not absolutely awful, but it's not so bad. And for me, I think that's a shame. I think it's a waste to live your life in the not-so-bad zone. And so part of what I want to encourage you to do tonight, a part of what tonight's all about, is encouraging you to move from the not-so-bad zone and move more of your life into the absolutely brilliant zone. And for me tonight, one person who's doing that I've noticed is Abdul Wahab. He's doing whatever it takes to move himself and keep more of his life in the absolutely brilliant zone, which means he acts as a role model for lots of other people.